Here to New York, going to welcome in Paul Rieckhoff, who's here with us in the studio. It's always good to see you, Paul. He's a national security analyst and our Army veteran. He's also the host of the Independent Americans podcast. There's been this talk, as I said to Robert, the last few days, really, that maybe some sort of a pause. I've heard 3 days. I've heard a shorter amount of time period would be put in place to get these hostages out, or some of them. What do you think is going to happen here?
I don't know, and I think most of us don't know. I think we're going to find out after the fact, but I think you're touching on what I think is still a really important priority is not just the hostages, but the American hostages. As many as 10 American hostages who continue to be underreported, in my opinion. We don't know a lot about them. Obviously, we don't know where they are, what their conditions are, but that's got to remain a top priority for the United States and for our Secretary of Defense in particular. And also, there have been developments. We've got 2 aircraft carriers in the region now, and there are U.S. drones. Reaper drones have been operating over Gaza, which is a significant development and is undoubtedly going to be focused on trying to identify as much intelligence as they can to fuel the IDF in seeking out especially American hostages.
Yeah, I saw Secretary of State Blinken talking about, and he's in Asia at the G7, what would happen in Gaza after the war. It may be premature, but just talking about the fact that it has to be, quote unquote, unified under the Palestinian Authority. What did you make of those comments that Palestinian Authority would take over, not only the West Bank, but in Gaza? Is that a plan that seems to make sense? Because nobody seems to know exactly what's going to happen after.
I think that's the important point. We have a lot of echoes of our 9/11 and a lot of echoes of our Iraq and Afghanistan war. And the big lesson from Iraq was, what's the plan for afterward, right? After you own the territory, after you occupy it, what are you going to do? How are you going to stand up a functioning government? How are you going to deliver services to people? That's what I saw on the ground. After we got Baghdad, we captured Baghdad, there was no plan for what's next. And it wasn't communicated to the world, and it wasn't communicated to soldiers on the ground or to the civilians. So I think it's an important point for Blinken and President Biden to continue to push forward. Israel has to present a vision for what this is going to look like afterward. Obviously, they have a right and obligation to defend themselves. How they do it is absolutely critical, and I think that's where the U.S. is trying to have more influence.
Okay, now, U.S. public opinion is interesting to look at on this as well. And, there was a poll that the AP came out with earlier about the military response from the Israelis in the Gaza Strip and what Americans think of that. 40% say that Israel's gone too far. 38% just about right, and 18% say they have not gone far enough. But it seems to be shifting that Americans are looking at this, and this, I guess, is a habit of Americans with war in general as it drags on. The support, we saw it in Ukraine, is not as high as it was at the beginning, but also the civilian pictures in this case seem to be having an impact on the American support. What does that all mean? What's the impact of that?
I think it means that the fight for hearts and minds in the world and in the United States is as important as the fight on the ground. We've seen here in the U.S. now there's a struggle to get the additional $60 billion in funding to Ukraine because Ukraine doesn't have the support it once did. It's become a more divisive issue, and it looks like over time Israel will become a more divisive issue, especially if we have a divided Senate and Congress like we do right now. So I think Israel's got to be conscious of the humanitarian casualties. They've got to be conscious of the images coming out of Gaza, and they've got to continue to put forward a vision for what the future will look like, where there is stability, there is peace, and where Israel can be trusted to lead on that. I think that's the hard part.
No, it is a hard part. You talk about divisions in this country. I'm sure you saw the Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was censured in the House. That came in yesterday. There was this hearing, I mentioned it briefly at the top of the broadcast today, which was about free speech on college campuses, and that things got testy there as well. Let's take a listen to what happened. We can come back and talk about this issue that's happening here in this country. This was today in Washington.
We will remove every single person who disrupts the committee.
So that woman's removed from the hearing, but the debate in this country seems to be this idea of free speech versus what is hate speech, what's appropriate, what's not, and what venue. What's your view on all of it?
I think what's most important to remember is that a divided America is good for our enemies, right? Putin wants to see Americans fighting in the streets. Hamas wants to see us divided in Congress. We have to find ways to bring the temperature down, to respect free speech, to support, our political positions without taking it to violence. We're seeing violence on college campuses and in the streets. Tonight, you've got this Republican debate. Yeah. I want to hear from the candidates, what are you going to do to bring Americans together, especially a couple days before Veterans Day? How can we unify as a country, bring people together, and be strong in whatever way possible? We don't have to have a pipe dream of total unity, but how do we reduce violence, keep people safe, especially groups that are right now obviously under attack and being marginalized? The president and the president wannabe has to communicate to the country, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to address
anything that you saw in the election results last night that's a message to you going into that Republican debate tonight? What were American voters telling us last night?
I think the most important message is that independents have a tremendous amount of influence. You saw that in the Kentucky governor's election. You saw that in the ballot initiatives in Ohio. You saw it in issues like legalized marijuana in Ohio, which is now out there. 50% of this country is independent. They don't pick a side. And they're going to determine most of those elections and the presidential election going forward. So I want to hear every candidate talk to me as an independent, and especially Veterans Day. 50% of veterans are independent, and they have an oversized impact on the election and will next year. So I want to hear them talk to us.
If you're right about that, it would be a good time to have a podcast called The Independent Americans. That's what I was thinking. You know, you should try.
Yes, sir.
There it is. That is the podcast. Paul, good to see you as always.
You too, Colin.
Paul Rykoff with us today.